about them Irish?
I can't take it anymore. I need a national championship.
This is the Four Horsemen podcast.
And we are back. The Four Horsemen podcast. From Phoenix to ABQ, from the Granite State, all the way to ABQ, by the way of Ozymandias. Your favorite podcasters are live to bring you a crazy handful of nothing straight from the gray matter. It's week 2, and the cat's in the bag and the bad's in the river. Everyone in college football is an idiot. And we're here to bring you a recap of week 1, or it feels like it was 2 weeks ago because the NCAA schedule was a fucking week 2 bye week. Michigan still sucks. Notre Dame's criminally underrated. And Trevor Lawrence is a bitch. For the sake of posterity, the time of this podcast, we are 4 days out from the Notre Dame-New Mexico game. Before I go any further, Dylan, here's your green light to introduce this week's fourth horseman.
Our fourth horseman this week, coming by way of the great state of New York, I believe. Please welcome Jake. I'm sure a lot of you guys know him. He's pretty active on Notre Dame football Twitter, and we're very happy to have him as our fourth horseman.
Sup?
So, Jake, this is going to be a rough, no-stuff type of deal. This is your pilot episode here. So what we're going to be doing today, we're really going to hit some key points. We're going over Louisville. We do something called the Four Horsemen of the Week. We'll be doing all of that right now. So we're ready to hit it. Really, just before we begin, I have a quick rant. I feel like I've been bit by a dead bee. I shaved my beard this week. Not great. So never shave your face. If anyone's out there, if a razor company would like to sponsor me, I will not take it. I miss my beard. The game itself also felt like it was bit by a dead bee. Felt like Notre Dame was playing peekaboo in the first half. So really, that's all I got. I was unimpressed by the game. I watched it in double time, so I didn't have to listen to the announcers. So the first half, I don't have any comments on, but I'll let you guys take it away.
Sure. Well, I think we should give Jake the first crack at the Four Horsemen, what he thought of the game.
Obviously, the start to the game was not optimal. We did score first, I believe, but then sorry. So obviously the start to the game was not optimal. We did go ahead first to start off, but then Louisville went in front. So the first quarter was definitely not optimal, but it was good to be leading by halftime. But even then, the performance was still really not up to standard for what Notre Dame should be performing like against a Louisville team like that. Obviously, the second half was a lot better than that. I felt like, it was either the offense was playing very well and the defense wasn't, or the defense was playing outstanding and the offense wasn't. I think I made that observation on Twitter.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good one. Our team was weird. We started off really, really well. The trouble was Louisville had a quarterback that was really difficult to defend. Those kind of run first quarterbacks. And I put on Twitter too. I think once we figured them out, we were going to stop them, which we did. I think everybody overreacted. So if you guys want a sober thought during a game, follow me on Twitter. Everybody was kind of.
You mean Notre Dame fans are Chicken Little with their head cut off? That's weird.
And surprisingly, the three of us, Steve, P-Wag, and myself, and surprisingly Steve, we were all very calm. We didn't feel too bad. I think it was just kind of first week sloppiness. Got to figure out the Louisville defense. Ian Book kind of wasn't so great in the first half there. But it wasn't too bad. Look, we won by 18. We almost covered the spread, but I don't want to talk about that right now. I think look, a win's a win. It was a big win, not as big as we wanted. I did say before the game, I tweeted out 40 plus points and no more than 17, and we had won 35-17. So we almost hit my threshold for what would have been a good game. So I think it's just kind of the offense, and we'll kind of get into the stats later. But I'll let Steve get his take in.
Yeah. First and foremost, worth noting, Louisville last week. They played, a FCS team. Yeah, they played Eastern Kentucky, but they went on to blow them out 42-0. That's basically expected, but for a team that was 2-10 last year, 3-9, something along those lines, they struggled a lot. Boy, did they come out with some juice. So you have to give Louisville credit, and we know that we're going to get 99% of the time, 95% of the time, we're getting every team that we play, we're getting their best game. That's kind of the bump of Notre Dame. Another Notre Dame bump is even through 2 weeks of college football, we have the 4th most watched game in all of college football, and it was against Louisville. So people get up for ND is essentially the talking point here. So I didn't panic as much as I normally would. If this was like a 27-13 game, I would have been, the sky would be falling, but at the end of the day, we gave up touchdowns on the first 2 drives to a very mobile quarterback, and then we settled in and absolutely dominated and gave up an additional 3 points in garbage time. So by all intents and purposes, it was a chess match to start, and then pure domination on the defensive side of the ball. There's definitely some concerns on the offense, namely, and I'm sure we're going to get very much so into this at some point in the conversation today. Ian Book, he was protected last year, very much so, from his kryptonite, and his kryptonite was the rush. And our offensive line got better this year, although there were some times where they kind of struggled. But if this is going to be a playoff contending team, Ian Book needs to find a way to figure out how not only to hang on to the ball for 1 extra second and make the necessary reads, but pre-snap, I mean, I counted off 4 or 5 times where pre-snap, it was very obvious where the pressure was coming from. And a field general quarterback is going to call the appropriate hot routes, the appropriate shifts in offensive line coverage, and let everyone know, here's what we're doing to adjust to this blitz because it's coming and it's obvious. He didn't do it. He was running around a lot of the time in the pocket like a chicken with his head cut off. So that's the concerning part of, if anything, which is, Ian, we've made the argument and the talking points. He's a top 10 college QB, looking this year to make him a top 5 and looking into getting into the first 4 rounds of the draft, realistically. It didn't look like he was an NFL caliber quarterback last night. Didn't look like he was a college football playoff caliber quarterback not last night, last week. So that was definitely the most concerning part. But other than that, holy shit, we got a talented team, and I'm excited. There's concern, but I'm excited.
It's interesting to hear your take there on Ian Book, because we will get into that in a bit. But I think we should move on to the 4 Horsemen.
So I don't get a game recap.
I thought you were done. I thought you did your little rant.
My little rant here is my 3 bullet points. The defense or the offense that we were facing was a Caballo Sin Nombre, really a horse without a name, so we had no tape on them. Ian Book was Kafka-esque. He sucked, and then he turned into a magical butterfly. And really, throughout the rest of the season, there's no more half measures all the way through, because another game like this will plummet them in the rank. Those are my points. Dylan, continue.
All right, so we heard about half of those. Jake, do you want to get the first crack at the 4 Horsemen if you had to look at them?
For mine, hold on, I have it written down. I had Trumbull, Hamilton, Jones, and I couldn't really settle on a 4th, but I went with Smith since he had 2 touchdowns.
No, fair point. I'll just give you mine now. We'll keep going in this rotation. My first Horseman is, of course, the greatest receiver to ever play college football from the greatest country ever, Chase Claypool. He had 5 receptions for 94 yards for 18.8 average. No touchdowns there, but he came in critical moments in the game. I think of that one where he kind of just dominated the ball and then ran the length of the sidelines and then took 20 yards. You know, he's kind of got that really big athletic type to him, and I think he's going to be a monster this year. My second one was Alohi Gilman. Love him. He got 10 tackles, 6 solo tackles, half tackle for loss, and he recovered a fumble. I thought he was all over the place. Really impressed with him. Third, I went with, I'm sure Steve's boy, Drew White. 5 tackles, 3 solo. He got a sack on the game, 2 for loss, and 1 pass deflection. That's unreal for a first game ever for a linebacker. Really impressed with Drew White. I think he's going to be really solid, but I'm not going to take the thunder there from Steve because I think that's his boy. And then fourth, I went with Tony Jones Jr., although I hate myself for picking him, but because we'll get into that later. But 15 carries for 110 yards, 7.3 per rush, and 1 touchdown. Overall, I think the offensive line did a good job in the first half. Second half, we just kind of fell off the wagon offensively. It was like Jake said earlier, with defense was going, the offense wasn't. When the offense was going, the defense wasn't. But kind of like Steve said earlier, the defense locked down in the second half. And I think there's a myth, out there that I kind of like to touch on, is that the defense struggled and the defense didn't look good. I see a lot of that from Notre Dame fans. And I think the reality is the defense was really good. I thought it played, after it settled in, the defense, it gave up some yards, but nothing much, lots of turnovers. And I thought they settled in nicely, and you got a whole new linebacker crew there. So I think that was overall a first good game. And those are my 4 horsemen.
Yeah,
I'll go. Steve, you go.
No, you, kind sir. It's all you.
Cool. First one, Jay Bramblett, the punter, 3 punts, 194 yards. Is going to be a stud. Jay Bramblett, say my name, Bramblett. Second one, Kyle Hamilton, like him. He's tall, he's lanky. Third one, Smith, 2 touchdowns, like Jake said. Really can't take away from him there.
Honing in on the 4 horsemen, and just to go off of Kyle Hamilton quickly. I mean, holy fucking shit. This kid he's the real truth, man. He is the next Eric Berry. This is the type of guy in the secondary that we have needed for so long. And I did not think he was going to get as quick as playing time as he did. He had 28 snaps, 14 in the dime package, which allowed Alohi Gilman. I'm outside if anyone didn't notice. 14 snaps in the dime package, which allowed Alohi Gilman to kind of crash down a little bit more, get involved, get after the quarterback, get involved on short passing routes, which actually led to that forced fumble by Alohi Gilman. And then he played his remaining 14 snaps just rotating in and getting some rest for Alohi Gilman or geez, why can I never think of anyone's name? Who's our other safety?
Elliott.
Jalen Elliott, thank you very much. So, yeah, I mean, he's not one of my 4 horsemen, but holy shit, that kid is fantastic. As for my actual 4 horsemen, to get into it, have to go with Tony Jones. After Jafar Armstrong went down, R.I.P., I'd play a song, but I'd get us, sued again or something. 110 yards, touchdown, 7.3 average. He was really moving the ball. There were some questionable play calls where they were giving him the ball on 3rd and shorts, and normally I would agree with it because we have a big bruising offensive line, but they called 3 or 4 of those plays where he was getting stuffed, and just don't become predictable, for fuck's sake. But overall, obviously, Tony played great, and we're going to need him to week in and week out to get to the point that we need to be. My second, Drew White, you gave him all the statistics before. He had a sack, he had a pass breakup. And he was playing maybe a third of the game to about the half of the game because they were cycling and rotating in talent. at the middle linebacker, inside linebacker position. So for him to stand out with limited snaps, he had a very calming presence. I know it's taken him 3 years to get onto the field, but this is now an experienced guy in the locker room and on the practice field, and he really let it fly on the game field. So that was great. Chase Claypool, 5 for 94 yards. He, exactly like you described, he had that ridiculous catch and run. Thank God no concussion at the end of that. Very much so. He reminds me of Equanimeous St. Brown. Did I say that correctly?
Equanimous.
Equanimous St. Brown. Tall, explosive after he makes the catch, and very high on Chase after that game. I always thought that he was like a B+ receiver, and I think he showed real ability to start to stretch the field and become a next level impact player at this level in the NFL. So that's awesome. And then my last Horseman is Oged. One moment. I want to make sure I get this right. Adekumbo Ogundeji. He is from Michigan. He was a 3-star athlete originally when he got recruited by us. He played sparingly last year, but Adi Ogundeji, I mean, he had 3 tackles, 1 for loss, including a forced fumble that Jay Hayes came up with. He is tall, he is athletic, he is quick, and he is strong. And for a backup defensive end, it's promising that he is such a talent. So that way we can get in some rotation with our top guys, and we know that we're not going to have a big drop-off in terms of talent on the depth chart. And that's what championship teams are made out of. So that I'm excited about him. He had a hell of a game with the forced fumble.
Real
Good stuff.
Quick, you saying that fumble thing reminded me. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall in the Notre Dame locker room at halftime after fumble happened. What do you think Kelly said to all of them? Because he was pissed to book. So that's just a thought there. It would have definitely been interesting to be in the locker room at that time.
Yeah, for sure. So just to kind of finish up with Louisville, I'll throw out some generic stats I kind of took a peek at. So 193 passing yards for Notre Dame to 134 for Louisville. That's just unacceptable, but that's what they were. What's important there, though, is 8.4 yards per attempt, which is decent. Not great, but it's all right, versus 4.8 for Louisville. And that's kind of the thing. If you're watching that game in the second half, it was Louisville can't throw the ball on us. They won't throw the ball on us. They don't want to. And when they did, it was very short. So that's another good stat at least from the defensive perspective, but also one that I think Louisville might want to have to look at going forward. This is a key one because I'm going to talk about running the ball later. But Notre Dame averaged 5.5 rushing yards per attempt versus Louisville's 5.3. The reason that's important is because they were both over 10 to start the half, and they end up at 5 because regression. Turnover battles where the game was won. 1 turnover for Notre Dame versus 3 for Louisville. Defense was really good, getting on the ball. I mean, one of them was a fluke, but whatever. And then lastly, surprisingly, we were actually outpossessed by Louisville. Louisville had 32 minutes of time of possession. We had 28. That's probably because Louisville stuck to the run in the second half. And when Notre Dame started throwing the balls, when they started really moving and getting points on the board. So that just kind of wraps up Louisville. What I wanted to talk about now was kind of Ian Book, because Steve touched on Ian Book playing poorly. And I think everybody who watched it would have thought that Ian Book was playing poorly. And I'd like to start it off with a caveat that Ian Book missed a lot of opportunities, right? There was some things early in the game that he could have done better. But I think we're actually holding him to a very high standard. And the reason I bring that up is Ian Book's QBR, which is a very fancy quarterback stat developed by ESPN based on expected points added. It's a really good stat. Anyway, his QBR for the game was 79.6, which actually isn't bad. That's a fairly decent score. The reason I bring that up is that his QBR average last year was 80.1. he was a little bit below average last year, which nobody felt like that. Like we all felt like he was pretty underperforming, but I feel like that could be the standard we set for Ian Book. We expect him to be a Heisman candidate. We expect him to be a lot better. He had 145 passer rating against Louisville. Passer rating is a very flawed one, but that's just to give you an idea. His average last year was 162, so he was below average. But I don't think it was as poor as we think. I think there was a lot of mistakes that could have gone better in the first half especially. But it is one I think Steve brought up where if we want to be a playoff team, Ian Book's got to be better, and I think I do agree with that. But it's just interesting to look back into the statistics and see that I think our initial perception of the game was way worse than it was later in the autopsy. So I'll let you get a word in, Steve.
Yeah, and I want to clarify, Ian still had a good game. When he had a clean pocket, he made the throws. He absolutely made some big-time throws when the pocket was clean. And majority of the time the pocket will be clean because we have an offensive line that's just phenomenal. It's just the fact that he's running around the pocket, sprinting around for dear life against Louisville. What happens when it's Alabama or Clemson? And that's what has me concerned, because I know that he's going to be okay for the rest, against fucking New Mexico. What are they going to do? We're going to be okay against them. We're going to be okay against Stanford. I mean, they're still rebuilding. They're okay. I mean, USC comes to town. They have some athletes, some 4-star guys. At the end of the day, I'm not very worried about their defensive line. Michigan has some talent that's going to be replaced, but it's unproven. So there's a little bit more, high alert concern there. But we're going to be okay in the regular season in the grand scheme of things. I want him to take that next step. I think he's capable of doing it. It's just terrifying to think that Louisville was making him look very mediocre with when they're able to drop 7, rush 4, and still have him sprinting around. It was just shades of the Cotton Bowl, and that's what was terrifying to me. So Ian Book, very good quarterback. Will he get to great quarterback? That's yet to be seen. Obviously, the concerns are out on the table, but I mean, overall, I think he still had a good game. Just not what we exactly as you had described is up to expectation at this point.
Yeah. And if we can kind of move that into another quarterback section, I know our friend Jake kind of wanted to get something in.
Yeah, before we get to that, that's why I was raising up my mic to raise my hand there. I don't think Ian Book is that intelligent. Hot take. I thought about that. I don't think he has the wherewithal without tape to be good against a team. He is a good quarterback, but he does not have the football IQ that you need to be a great quarterback. There's no tape on Louisville. There will be 1 week of tape on New Mexico. I wouldn't be surprised to see him struggle this week as well. That is my hot take there. Just because he needs the tape. He can evaluate the tape. He just doesn't have smarts to figure out how to put what he's practiced into a game situation. But let's hit our favorite human ever. Jake had a topic he wanted to bring up. The guest topic of the week is brought to you by Packy. Packy Tequila. Drink some. Connor, send me my bottle now. We have a new sponsorship, guys. Jake, hit us up with this new topic. What do you want to talk about?
So I want to talk about Phil Jerkovich. So Kelly, let me find a tweet. He says they're preparing 3 quarterbacks for New Mexico. So obviously the thinking is there could be a situation where we see Phil get in the game. I know I didn't watch spring game, but I know apparently he did not have an optimal off season with in regards to his development. I just want to see how everybody views him long term at Notre Dame, and if they think we'll get a look at him on Saturday.
Yep.
Who wants to touch that one first?
I'll take it.
I call next.
We are a big PJ podcast here. He is our problem dog who is just in the kennel right now, barking away, waiting to get out on the field. He's a voracious runner. He's a awesome passer. He's a beautiful man. And I think he'll be able to play the game. It's one of those things where we're going to blow New Mexico out. Ian Butch shouldn't be playing the fourth quarter. Georgia's the following week. I'll see Phil in. Yeah, I'll say he'll throw 10 passes. He'll complete 8 of them. He'll throw a touchdown. And if we're going to get nuts here, he'll run in for a touchdown as well. Steve?
Let me tell you about Phil Jerkovich. I wanted to see my baby boy out there last week, and he didn't get in. Louisville put up a little bit too good of a fight for the backups to get some time. Obviously, we expect that against New Mexico. And I am absolutely giddy. I have butterflies in my stomach knowing that we are, 72 hours away from me seeing my beautiful baby boy take the field and probably throw like 6 touchdowns in the fourth quarter alone when we're up already 56-0. I don't care about the spring game. I've read all the articles since then, and Coach Tommy Rees has already come out and said, listen, he's made every single improvement along the way. Everything is incremental. Young kids, more often than not, don't just step into a college program, especially Notre Dame, and just excel. So he needed some time to develop. He is going to be perfectly fine. And he is the chosen one. He is the chosen one, and I don't want to look like Qui-Gon Jinn in a couple of years yelling at Anakin. That he should have been the chosen one and that everything is going down in flames, because that is not going to happen. Because he's going to have a great offensive line. He's going to have great receivers. And he is going to lead us to the promised land. And that is my beautiful baby boy, Phil.
Dylan needs hazard pay for being on this podcast with us. We are in love with Phil Jerkovich. He is good. And he's going to show it. That's all I got.
First off, I think it was Obi-Wan who said that to Anakin, not Qui-Gon.
Nerd.
I knew I screwed up instantly, and I was so mad that I fucked up the reference, but...
Yeah,
I called you on it. I'd like to everybody know, if you go back into the archives, I was very much on the Phil train as our Lord and Savior. In fact, I kind of wanted him to be the quarterback last year. I'm kind of cooled on Phil. The spring game didn't help. I don't know what to think, because we have a very good quarterback behind him, and we have a very good one coming in Drew Pine. So
2 very good ones. Brendan Clark as well. He combined 9 touchdowns the other night. So I'm sorry,
I thought high school recruits didn't matter, P.
Not Brendan Clark. I'm thinking Tyler Butchner, TB12,
Yep.
9 touchdowns. High school doesn't matter, but that's my stat of the day, Dylan. You can bury me with that blood money right there.
All right. I anticipate seeing Phil, to answer your second part of your question, because you got to keep in mind we have that new NCAA rule about 4 games for a red shirt. So I think we'll see the 3rd-string quarterback as well, because New Mexico, if you look at that game on the schedule, it's probably the easiest game we'll have all year. It's at home opener. New Mexico isn't really good. We'll get to that in a bit. And I think we'll see Phil. We do play Bowling Green. Well, those are the 2 games you'll probably expect to see the quarterbacks. I don't know if Phil can carry a second red shirt 2 years in a row. I'm not sure about that.
Only if he gets hurt.
Only if he gets hurt. Right. But so that might be more pertaining to the 3rd quarterback. But we'll see, I imagine, Phil, probably in the 4th quarter. Hopefully by then the game's over, and you can get Phil some time, because he needs to start throwing the ball at a college level. That's kind of just where I stand on it. Is he the long-term quarterback? Probably. I don't know for sure. We have to see more out of him. That's kind of it. Do you have any thoughts, Jake?
I'd just like to maybe add a little bit about Clark. Just do we think we see him too? Like, what do we think the breakdown of like QB time might be Saturday optimally?
Optimally, Ian Butch is out by halftime.
Yeah,
You have Phil in the third quarter, and you bring Clark in for the fourth.
I don't think it's going to be quite like that. Although I'd love that. That would be great if Ian can throw for 350 by halftime and end that thing and be up 35-0. It'll probably be at the very end of the third quarter, if not the beginning of the fourth quarters, when Phil comes in, if all goes according to plan, and then maybe Brendan Clark, sees maybe one, possibly two drives at the end.
Yeah, I hope we see more of Phil than the Giants got to see of Daniel Jones on last Sunday. Just like to add that as a Giants fan. Although optimally in the latter's case he would be starting, but that's another issue for another time.
Fair enough. So unless we have anything else to touch on with the quarterbacks, I'm going to bitch about running the ball.
Dylan.
So I'll give you your moment, but then I'm going to just have at it.
I'll let you have your moment, but as a confession here, you're absolutely a rabid dog on this topic. You're crazy. So I'll say that beforehand.
Right.
No, you're not crazy, right? I'll get into after, but you're wrong. Okay. That is a preface of your little rant here. You're wrong. No mas.
So during the game, we were running the ball well to start the game, 10 yards per carry. And by the second half, we were barely getting anything. And what a surprise, something called regression exists. It happened for both teams. You can't sustain 10 yards per carry normally. But people kept insisting on running the ball. The problem is that statistically, it is not evident that running the ball provides any kind of benefit at the current levels, the current way we're running the ball. So the math behind it is something called expected points added. You can go, I recommend it. I believe his name Ben Baldwin on Twitter, works with The Athletic. He is the revolutionary on it. And it's for the NFL, but it applies very similarly to college football. And the issue here is that running the ball does not yield a high expected points added. Throwing the ball does. Running the ball also doesn't suggest it's a lower success rate. And the success rate is defined as so many yards per carry versus a pass, how many yards per pass. And I would encourage people to check it out. Look at the data on running the ball. It's low. There's an app that Ben had just published for the NFL season that's a live box score of points. And unless your name's Saquon Barkley, running backs have very little expected points added versus quarterbacks. It's just the way it works. Throwing the ball is much more likely to add points to you, to your team, than running the ball. And when you run the ball, you get predictable. And running is also highly predicated on things like the offensive line, the scheme, defensive personnel. So are they stacking the box or not? There is definitely a moment in time and a moment in the game to run the ball. The optimal number is not 0. But continuously running the ball is not good. It is inefficient. It is just not the best way to move the ball forward. It's not the best way to score. So when I see people with the old man take, the old football mind take of run the ball, meat and potatoes, the P-Wagon take, the take that has no evidence at all for it, it drives me nuts because guess when Notre Dame started winning? When they started throwing the ball. They went from having all this run success early that started slowing down on them because it's not sustainable and because teams can adjust to it. And then they start throwing the ball, and that's when they start scoring. You get the ball out wide, you get it long, you get it past the markers. That's just statistically where you are more likely to find success, especially on downs like 3rd and 2. How many times do we get stuffed 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1 on the run? So this is just a warning shot to everybody else.
Way too many is the answer.
Way too many. Play action. I'm sorry, Jake, to bring this up again, but you just have to go watch and look at the stats of the Dallas Cowboys-New York Giants game. Dak Prescott, 74% something like was play action call, and like the high success rate that the Cowboys were having throwing the ball on play action on first down was just unbelievable. You know what I mean? Like that's the way you score. It's the way you move the ball. So when people are complaining on Twitter, run the ball, it drives me nuts. I'm sorry, guys. It's predictable. It's not efficient. Running backs are extremely replaceable, which is why I'm not worried about Dexter Williams leaving at all. So I'm going to leave you with that. Hopefully, those who don't know about it, like myself, I used to be a run-the-ball guy. I encourage people to look into it, look into the numbers, look into the stats. They bear out something that's very revolutionary in football, and it's something we're moving towards. And the best teams in the NFL are doing it, and the best teams in the college football are going to start doing it too.
Well, Dylan, that was rude of you to say about Dexter Williams. We miss him every day, 22 for life. And you really do have the market cornered here. And unfortunately, I don't think I can be your hermano in this because I'm a big 3 yards and a cloud of dust type of guy. If you can run the ball at will at your opponent, that's what I teach. So that's where I'm at there. Steve, hit it.
Don't get me wrong. I'm actually a very happy medium. Run the ball until they prove that they can't stop it. Right. But once they've already stuffed you, make some adjustments. Simple play action pass. Tommy Tremble, welcome to the fucking league. Incredible, first game. He only had 3 receptions, but he made an impact. He's a great tight end. I mean, we are tight end university as of recent history. It's not hard to have play action, roll out, and then have a tight end wide open on a flag route. And at the very least, play action, you look for downfield. If something's open, you got him. You got a 6'5" receiver on one side. You got talented tight ends. You have multiple of them. And then you also have a running back to check it down to. And then if all else fails, if you have to make it 2 yards for a first down on 3rd and 2, you have a guy that, as we know, can scramble. He scrambles a little bit too early sometimes because he can't handle the pressure sometimes. So Ian he can play action, pass first, check down second, run the ball third. You have all the options, RPO or whatever the hell they want to call it. Don't get me wrong. The first 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, absolutely. Try to run it down their throats because Tony Jones was averaging 7.3 yards per carry. He was cutting them up, and our offensive line was bullying them. You get stuffed. Maybe you want to try it one more time because you think it's a fluke, but at the end of the day, they start stacking the box, make an adjustment. And the play calling in this game was maddening, and that was crazy. So I'm a happy medium here. When you need to, it's not hard to throw the ball for 2 yards. Simultaneously, if they're not going to stack that box, take advantage and run right through them. Just play the situation. So I have no problem with calling a play action pass in some of those situations, and I think that they were not passing as much as they needed to, and especially stretching out the field, which is another weakness that Ian has showed. They should have stretched it out significantly earlier. So throw the football in today's day and age, but I'm a healthy mix. If my ideal game, if I'm calling it, you got 60 plays, 35 passes, 25 rushes.
Jake, you got the last word on if Dylan's idea about passing the ball first is correct, or if he should be running the ball like a good Notre Dame running back should be.
I think I'll agree with him mostly. I think it's becoming more of a passing game. I think I'm sure Dylan knows where I stand on that with regards to the Saquon Barkley pick with the Giants. I think it's not. I'm not saying it's not important to have a good running game, but when you look at optimally, you're going to be passing first, and that's what you're going to be building your team around because it's more valuable. So I'm gonna mostly stand with him, but I still hope the best for Dexter Williams and have him back soon.
Fair enough. Should we move into New Mexico?
Yes. So what we're going to do now, just a quick New Mexico overview, predictions, and then I think we're done with the podcast for the day.
Sounds good. I got all the numbers here if you want me to run it down first and let you guys kind of pick it apart from there.
Hit it.
All right. So we'll start with the 2018 season for the New Mexico
Lobos.
Something stupid.
Lobos.
Yes.
Do they have wolves in Canada, Dylan? You should know the Spanish name for it.
We have wolves. We don't have Spanish people. So 2018, they went 3-9, 1-7 in the Mountain West. Their wins, though, were not very impressive. They came against Incarnate World, New Mexico State, and UNLV. So they're not a good team last year. This year, a little more interesting. Their FPI after 1 week is negative 12.3, which is 109th in college football. It's not very good. Their
What's
projected
an
win
FPI,
loss.
Dylan? Is that like an IFT?
It's a fancy stat ESPN made that nobody really understands. But it's basically an index based on an aggregate of scores to kind of give you an idea of which teams are performing how well regardless of win losses or rankings. So their projected win loss by that method is 5-7 this year, which is interesting. That could put them in bowl contention. Their week 1 game was against Sam Houston State, in which they barely won 39-31, and they had a bye week. So to just kind of give a tale of the tape, looking at some of the efficiency scores, again on ESPN, it's pretty good for college football stats. Overall, Notre Dame's 11th in the country in efficiency, which is, again, a testament to not how we didn't play as bad as people think. 89.7 is the score. That doesn't really matter. It's out of 100, I think. New Mexico's 87th in the country total. Offense, Notre Dame's the 19th most efficient team after, again, 1 game early. New Mexico is 94th. Notre Dame is the 12th most efficient defense. New Mexico is 76th. And special teams, which don't matter, 66th for Notre Dame and 74 for New Mexico. So by all purposes, it looks like this should be a blowout. New Mexico was not good last year. They don't really look good so far this year. And Notre Dame is a lot better than I think people are giving them credit for, even after the first game, which actually wasn't that bad. And if anyone is interested, the FPI on Notre Dame is 7th in the country right now, which suggests they're fairly well ranked by the AP, and the projected win-loss, as always, is 10-2. So I will let you guys carry away from there.
Jake.
Yeah.
Hit me with your thoughts on what Dylan just said.
I would
What's your
tend
take?
to agree. New Mexico is not a great team. Can't believe it. I always laugh when I hear about Incarnate Word because that's just a funny name. But yeah, I would tend to agree. This should be if Notre Dame can't win. If they can't win this without ease, that would be kind of troubling. I would have to say, if they don't just dispatch New Mexico, I would be a bit worried. Going back to Rich, if he's not in by the fourth quarter, I'd be very worried. I don't mean to say that they should not be taken seriously, because they should be, but being realistic, it's not a tough opponent at all. It's not a great team. I know Bob Davie won't be traveling to the game. I don't know much else about them, but they are not very good.
Steven?
62-3.
Yeah, I'd go.
Okay. Hitting that prediction. Jake, what's your prediction?
Yeah, about somewhere along those lines. I don't think it will be as bad as the Oregon game, but I think it will be pretty bad.
And just to wrap up, for anyone gambling out there, Bob Davie did have a heart attack after his week 1 overtime win. I'm glad that he's still kicking. Bob Davie hopeful, or Stan, whatever you want to call it. Big fan of his, so thank God Davie's still around, such that he's not traveling. Team could get up for the game in that regard. Defensive tackles out, quarterbacks out, a lot of unknowns, more teams that we don't have tape on. So we'll see what happens. Defensive coordinator is coaching in his first head coaching game ever. So that's that. Prediction, I'm saying Notre Dame 53, New Mexico 12.
I guess I'll give my prediction too. I have it 45-10 for Notre Dame. I think we will dominate them in the first half.
Don't say that again. We lost it. We lost the prediction.
Oh, you lost me? Oh.
Now we got you.
I think
45.
Notre Dame will win 45-10 in my estimation. I think they will dominate the first half. I think basically we'll kind of put pedal. We won't keep the pedal to the metal. We'll take our foot off of it. I think we will ease up in the third and fourth quarter. So I think we might score 35 in the first half, but only get 10 points after that. I think New Mexico will score. Every team's got something tricky to deal with, whether that be garbage time or if they score realistically. But yeah, I think 45-10 would be a decent score. I know you guys are predicting something a little bigger. I'm just going to be a little more moderate, I think, after the Louisville week to not jump and assume that the other team is horrible right away. But yeah, I think it'll be a convincing win that we dominate, and then we kind of just ease off in the second half.
Awesome. Steve, any last words?
Kyle Hamilton gets his first pick of his career, and that's about it. We destroy them, make Notre Dame great again.
Jake, any last words?
My mic wasn't on there, was it?
It was not.
Not really, but I agree with the Hamilton prediction. I'd like to see that. So, yeah.
Do you have anything to say while you have this platform? Any kind of big statements, where to follow you, anything like that?
Whatever you want, as long as it's legal.
Not really. I'm sure my Twitter's Jake87. You can follow me there if you want to, but not really. That's about it.
Fair enough.
Dylan.
Let's just get a win. Let's get it big. No dramatic games. I'm kind of sick of Notre Dame Twitter melting down. So, yeah, don't run the ball. Go Irish. Beat whatever team name the New Mexico team has.
It's the Lobos. And if you hadn't realized throughout this whole podcast, I was using Breaking Bad titles from the entire 5 seasons in my conversation tonight, just to make it a little interesting. I hit 31 out of the 62 titles. So that's a game that we can all play along with. I had a lot of fun doing that. So other than that, Notre Dame, you know what's going to happen. The sky's going to fall as soon as one blade of grass gets misplaced at Notre Dame Stadium. And really, just go Irish, beat Lobos.